do roll call, please.
Councilmember Cervantes,
Here.
Councilmember Manley, Councilmember Molina, Mayor Pro Tem Hewitt,
Here.
Mayor Davis.
We're going to go ahead and excuse City Councilwoman Linda Molina and Mayor Davis, please. And let it be known that City Manager Cobal is here, City Attorney Boro, City Clerk Curtis, Finance Director Reed, Planning Director Lucia, Public Works Director Monson. Oh, she's not here. City Engineer Thornton, Fire Chief O'Connell, and Sheriff Captain Northrop. And with that, Mike, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? And we have a few presentations today. San Bernardino Community College District, Diane Rodriguez.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. And as introduced, my name is Diana Rodriguez, and I'm the Chancellor of the San Bernardino Community College District. In our district, we house not only San Bernardino Valley College, but also Crafton Hills College, which is closest to you all, as well as KBCR and our Economic Development Corporate Training Center, and a number of other holdings within the district. So how many of you here have been a student or an alum of one of our campuses? So good to see so many of our alumni and a professor at our institutions. Good to see you here. You know, it's always a pleasure to come in and talk about the impact that our district is having on the communities. But rather than me talk about it, I'd like to share with you a video that really highlights who we are. So if I can draw your attention to the screens, that would be great. Here in the largest county in the United States, big dreams find a home. SBCCC. What do these letters spell? Opportunity. We're home to Crafton Hills College, San Bernardino Valley College, and our very own PBS and NPR public media station, KBCR. This is where our community learns something new every day. Affordable tuition, uncompromised quality, over 20,000 bright students. Every year, 2,000 of them graduate to do big things. We're more than higher education. We're an economic engine. In total, we boost our local economy by $720 million every year, building things, supporting local jobs, and helping businesses grow. We also team up with our local schools so young students get a taste of college early on. Our students learn by doing. They clock in over 40,000 hours of community service a year, helping make our neighborhoods even better. And for anyone looking for new career skills or a second chance, our Economic Development and Corporate Training Center is here, welcoming everyone and ready to lend a hand. To every neighbor, every taxpayer, know that every dollar, every effort is an investment in our shared future. At SBCCD, every day is about creating opportunities right here at home. You know, I really love this video because it really speaks to the excellence that our district has had for nearly 100 years. In 2 years, we will be celebrating our 100th anniversary in serving the community. It's also important to show you the faces of our district, the visionaries of our SBCCD, which include our Board of Trustees. So if we can advance the slides to show the next one. So they couldn't be here today because of other obligations, and I think they're having challenges with slides, so I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Here we go. There they are. And so these are the faces, the true leadership, the true visionaries of our district. I won't read them all, but I thought it was important to show their faces. Of course, Dr. Stephanie Houston is the chair of our Board of Trustees and is also your representative here for the Calimesa area. And also shown on the slide is your student trustee, Hare Natur, who has just been dynamic in serving our board. He's such an amazing young man. Along with our two presidents, Dr. Gilbert Contreras for San Bernardino Valley College, and of course many of you know Dr. Kevin Horan, the president at Crafton Hills College. So incredibly fortunate to have these two men at the helm of each of our institutions. So super excited to be working with them. So who do we serve in our community? We have about 23,000 students at both of our campuses, ranging from about 15 years of age through our middle school programs. And I'm going to say more seasoned individuals that are well into their 80s that attend our institutions. So 23,000 plus students serving 22 cities and communities, and we have 7 K-12 partners that we serve in our K-12 districts that are listed there that you can see. We also reach over 4 million individuals through our KVCR TV and FM radio stations. We like to think that all 4 million of those individuals are our students, or at least potential students, because they truly are learning something every time they turn on the KVCR. So we're super excited to have that program with you. Have any of you been to KVCR, to our studios? Oh, well, I'm going to personally invite you all. You have, fantastic. I'm going to personally invite all of you for a tour of KVCR, and also, if you're interested, we would love to have you on air as well, just to talk about all of the fantastic things that are happening here in Calimesa. To also show more the value of higher education and training that we offer our institutions, if we can advance the slides, we're committed to keeping our fees low as a community college, right? Many of our students within our communities just really cannot afford higher education. So that is one of the things that we value, that we can keep the degrees under $1,300 a year for our students. If you think about that, right, that is a much more affordable than the $14,000 one would pay going to a UC school, not to mention the $45,000 that one might pay in attending a private institution. So we really do think that we offer, in fact, I know that we offer a quality education. A student that is interested in transferring would find great value in attending their first couple of years and completing their general education with us prior to transferring to a 4-year institution. So next, we also help our students who have started out, and we've started what we call a College Core program. And what this is, it's a program that is funded through the state, where the students can volunteer to work to give back to their communities. And for their service, we will pay them $10,000 that they can use towards their fees to attend school, their fees, their books, and so on, or for any other living expenses that they might have. You know, it is expensive not only to attend school at any level, right, but when you factor in the cost of living, to buy groceries, to put gas in the car, it really adds up for our students. So this is a phenomenal program that we're excited about, And not only are we helping the students financially, back to them, we're also helping the students build a sense of community and find value in giving back and serving to their community. So if you know of any nonprofits in the area that could benefit from our students' help, please let us know. We would be excited and happy really to refer students to those organizations. We're also growing in offering more local career training. The next video that you'll see really highlights two buildings that I am super excited about. Two buildings, one on each of our campuses, San Bernardino Valley College and Crafton Hills College, that is going to have just a tremendous impact, not only on the campuses, but in our communities. If we could play the video, please. You know, these projects that you've seen here, these two buildings, were funded through Measure M and Measure CC, over $500 million in construction for these programs. So we really want to thank our voters for believing in us, and more importantly, believing in our students. So appreciative of that. And we're also happy to report that the bond alone has contributed $7.9 million of paid direct wages to local construction workers. That was important, right? That was a priority, not only for myself and my administrative team, but also for our board members. We wanted to keep as much of the dollars as local as we could, and we were excited about that. And these buildings here, happy to say that the Applied Technology building over at San Bernardino Valley College, we are roughly about 6 months from opening the doors on that building. So, you know, just super excited about that. And for the PAC at Crafton Hills Center, the Performing Arts Center, we're about a year away from that. But we are excited. All of you will be invited to the grand openings of each of them. If you'd like to get a sneak peek, a preview of the Applied Tech building before the grand opening, give us a call. We are happy to do tours of groups, especially for the leaders in our communities. I think you'll be super impressed with what we have to offer. And lastly, just want to share with you the work of KBCR. We are home of a PBS and NPR. The KBCR radio station, serving nearly 4 million individuals throughout our communities, is housed on the San Bernardino Valley College campus, where we not only have professionals behind the cameras, behind the radios, but we also have opportunities for our students to get real hands-on experience in the communications field. And we are also have FNX, which stands for the First Nations Experience, and it is the only Native American and World Indigenous channel in the United States, which strictly only has programming for those specialized groups. Really excited about that. And again, I want to welcome you again to come by, take a tour. We would love to hear you on air or see you in front of the camera. It'll be fun. I promise you. We'll make you all look good. Promise you. Okay. So I think I'm about out of time, but I just want to again thank you for allowing me to come share just a little bit about what we're doing throughout the district. Thank you for welcoming my team ahead of time to make sure the video was working, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Question? No?
Well,
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all again for your leadership. Thank you.
Now our next presentation will be from the League of California Cities Riverside Division, Jesse Ramirez. He's the Regional Public Affairs Manager for Riverside Division.
Hello, hello. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity tonight to give you an update on some of the stuff Cal Cities has been working on, and some of the asks, I guess, that we're asking of our cities here from a legislative perspective. I want to start by kind of giving you guys an update just on Cal Cities. If you're not too familiar, Cal Cities is being currently rebranded from California League of Cities, so please don't be confused by that. I get questions all the time if we're a different organization. Same organization, just going through a little rebrand there. Cal Cities, we really focus on making sure that we're supporting or opposing bills coming out of the legislature that protect cities' rights to make their own decisions. Specifically in Riverside County, there are two particular areas that are really important to our executive committee and our members, and that's land use and public safety. I'm going to touch a little bit on both of those today because, again, those are the most pressing that we're working on here currently. But we have a plethora of bills that we've worked on over the year. I think the PowerPoint's like 77 pages, so if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. But I want to start there. We'll start with public safety. We're currently asking the governor to sign a bill that's sitting on his desk. It's AB 1960, and the author is Rivas. These are sentencing enhancements for property loss. This measure would apply additional terms of incarceration, ranging from 1 to 4 additional years for those who have excessively take or damage property during the commission of a felony offense. I don't know if you have been tracking the legislature this year, but there is a plethora of bills, and I'll skim through them on just the generalities, but it's a retail theft package of more than 11 bills having to do with crimes, property crimes, drug use, retail theft, theft from a vehicle, organized theft, marketplace theft, and sentencing enhancements for sales, exchange, or returns of stolen property. There were a lot of issues that we were getting feedback from our cities. Big box stores were leaving cities because of the retail theft problems that they were witnessing. And so we're asking the governor to sign 1960, which is a Rivas bill, and he already signed the retail theft package. Along with that, we are supporting Prop 36, which is a measure that is funded and supported by the District Attorneys Association. This measure is also making amendments to Prop 47 when it comes to fentanyl use as well as retail theft. And I can kind of give you guys an update on some of those conversations. But that's also something that we're really focusing on here in Riverside County. Prop 36 adds to the list of crimes with penalties up to 2 to 3 years for fentanyl possession, along with a firearm. It increases the penalties from 2 to 20 years depending on the amount, and increasing penalties for fentanyl. And treatment mandated felony creates a new crime for hard possession with tiered penalties up to 25 years. This proposition also really kind of tackles the issue behind law enforcement not having the teeth when it comes to a lot of these retail theft crimes. our board voted in July to support these, and so the 501c6 is what we are. We have a government aspect and a PAC aspect, and so our PAC fundraising will be going to measures like this that support cities in these issues. The last area that I wanted to cover for you guys was some of these land use bills that we're seeing come out of Sacramento right now. They're not very friendly to our planning decisions, particularly here in Riverside County. Something that we've kind of grown to learn here in Riverside County is that we're a little different than LA and some of the more dense cities. And so I want to put some red flags out for you. The first being a housing element bill, which is AB 1886 Alvarez. And I'm sure if you haven't been spammed by all of my emails over the last month, you'll be getting some more. So this measure would allow a builder's remedy to begin as soon as the Department of Housing and Community Development or a court determines a jurisdiction's housing element is out of compliance. This is important because once they determine that a jurisdiction is out of compliance, they have a couple other bills that are going to be also impacting cities once they're out of compliance. SB 1037, which is a Wiener bill. This measure would fine jurisdictions up to $50,000 a month for either not having a compliant housing element or disregarding any state law regarding the ministerial approval process of an affordable housing project, even if the jurisdiction is acting in good faith. This measure would establish a $50,000 per month fine after court rules a city is out of compliance with housing element law. We are heavily requesting veto letters. They're on our website. If you guys need them, please let us know. But SB 1037, AB 1886, and SB 450, which is an Atkins bill, are three of our top concerns right now. We really want our cities to get behind us on this and really submit letters for veto. This measure would limit local government's ability to apply objective standards to a proposed SB 9 project. It would also require local agencies to approve or deny a proposed project within 60 days or it's deemed approved. It would also allow a developer to demolish and replace an existing home with 2 or more homes. And so we're really focusing on that. Those are 3 areas that we're really focused on. Again, we've been putting out emails over the last couple months, but those are some of the areas that we're working on. We recently at our division meeting had a panel to talk about homelessness solutions. I know that's also a growing issue within the Riverside County area. We met with the Continuum of Health at the county, had a great discussion, and so there's resources there as well. Please look at me as a resource for you. I also want to remind some of my council folks, in fact I had a conversation with a council member in Marietta this morning that doesn't know this exists, but you all have access to what's called a listserv. And so it basically gives you access to other council members across the state. When you have a question or the city's in a specific jam or has questions regarding something, you can email those council members to see how those cities dealt with it. There's staff listservs, which are for your public, for your department heads. Your city manager has a listserv. Mayor and council members have listservs, so please take advantage of that. I think it's a super cool tool that Cal Cities offers. So that's kind of the gist of my update. We do have our annual conference coming up in October. Looking forward to seeing you all there. And 2 things that I wanted to leave you with. Next year, starting in the Riverside County Division, we're going to start hosting 2 new meetings in addition to our division meetings. One of them will be revolving around clerks and the Levine Act. We've partnered with BBK, and they're going to come out and give us legal updates, do's and don'ts, and best practices for our clerks and also our planning commissioners. Our planning commissioners are voting on really big projects here in Riverside County. We want to give them the tools that they need, and so BBK will be participating in that with us as well to talk about do's, don'ts, what changes in laws, zoning laws, and land use planning laws have been changed from 2024 to 2025. So those are 2 events that we'll be adding to the division next year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there's questions.
Colin, do you have anything? Jeff?
Quickly, thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Appreciate
sir.
that presentation. You mentioned a resource for city council members, a listserv.
Yes, sir.
Can we access that from the Cal Cities website, or is there a
You
separate?
can. If you want to send me an email, I'll connect you with Isaac Black, who's in Sacramento, and he accesses and manages the whole server. So you'll just add your email on there, and you'd be, in fact, he can kind of designate if you want to specifically send it to certain counties or cities. You can kind of build your own your own roster, I guess, if that makes sense that way. So, yeah, we have several cities that are using it, particularly when it comes to some of the legislative bills during the year. You know, they'll ask, hey, how is this affecting your city? How is staff dealing with this situation, or how are council members reacting to this law that's being implemented?
Right.
So, super cool tool there for you guys to take advantage of.
Sounds like it. Thank you. I'll be sending you an email.
Sweet.
That's kind of what I wanted to touch on. When you say California cities, you're including the whole state of California?
Yeah, the whole state, correct.
So I think Riverside County is a little bit more conservative
Right.
than LA, obviously.
Sure, sure.
So how do you deal with that? I mean, all these bills and all, some of them.
Yeah,
don't
it's tough.
really-
We ultimately make our decisions. Our board makes a decision based on what our mission is, and our mission is really to control that local control, or protect that local control. If there's a bill that, and I'll give you a perfect example, is this retail bill, the retail theft bills. Our cities were adamantly supportive of the retail theft package. They did this last minute switcheroo on us and added some language in that bill that was going to preempt Prop 36, and so we pulled our support. And I think there were a lot of voting members, even in Northern California, that were looking at this like, okay, this was kind of a dirty little trick, and we're not going to stand with it. They did end up taking out that language, which was a big win for us, and then our board on top of that went and supported Prop 36. But that, to give you an example, is kind of how, and you know, by the way, those public policy committee members were here from Riverside County. One council member from the desert and a couple police chiefs that really raised that question during policy committee. So, and, you know, policy committees are coming up. If you're interested in being involved in a policy committee, please reach out. My goal here over the next year, I just got hired in October, so I'm still kind of figuring out how it works, but I really want to get more engagement. I want to get more involvement from my division. We've done a thing where we've partnered with San Bernardino County Division and Mountain Cities Division. It's the first time it's been done in Cal cities in this region. We had our first event in February. We had over 200 elected officials and city managers come out. We heard updates from both county county CEOs, and it was a tremendous turnout. San Bernardino, Riverside County, we have regional issues that I think affect us differently than other parts of the state, and being able to come together on those issues has been really important for us this year.
Can I add one thing too?
Sorry.
On that, I think another example of that is housing legislation. The cities across the state, across the political spectrum, have had input on those. That's one area. That's another area that I think we've all come together on. I think you would agree with that, Jesse.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Yeah, I just don't want them to bunch us in with LA County.
Yeah, we look, they're very different counties, and look, this planning commissioner conference is the reason this started. I had planning commissioners talk to me at the conference saying, hey, we're voting on really big projects, whereas, you know, they're doing small infills in LA. They're, you know, Orange County in certain areas is already built out, and so
Right.
the types of projects that we're getting are different. Can you bring those resources? And so we were able, fortunately, to get BBK to help that and help us with that and educate us. So, and another question that I had from a council member recently was, these educational workshops, it's not always just Cal Cities. We look at the issue if it's housing, and we'll get different perspectives to come in and speak to our board's opponents, proponents, and so they come speak on the issue, and our board makes the educated decision that way.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, that's it for our presentations tonight. Thank you for coming, Diana and Jesse. We really appreciate that. Our next thing on the agenda is communications from the public, and I'll call up Bill Thomas, please.
Good evening. Thank you for that nice presentation. It's very timely because I wanted to somewhat cover some of that. My name is Bill Thomas. I'm a resident of Calimesa, of course, for the last 41 years. And I'm taking this opportunity to have this intimate conversation, it appears, with our council for a very important reason. I gave the city clerk who distributed the rules and regulations for the council. And as far as local control, it's very timely because this is what we're looking for in the application of those rules and regulations, most particularly with all the tremendous amount of growth occurring in our region, and not just Calimesa, in Beaumont and Yucaipa. We've got tremendous opportunity for developers, residential, commercial, and industrial. And I think it's important that this body is in complete compliance with the rules and regs, because we need order in this chamber. If I could just make it like a vision of this podium being all of the residents of Calimesa, and just the decorum that's required to have good, healthy conversation. These developers are coming in, and they're coming in hard, and we're talking about this is going to occur over the next 2 to 3 decades. The city has a great general plan. We have a great zoning map. Our specific plan for Oak Valley is superb, and we've got to be very cautious right now, because you can count on almost every developer coming into town. They're going to be asking for amendments. When he says local control, that's what we're talking. We need to control that through our policy procedures in this body. And I appreciate all the work you do. I'm here for the same reason you guys are here. I am a community member that's engaged. I raised a family here. You guys are the same way, I think. I mean, you're here because you care about our community. We have to make good decisions, and our policy procedures allow us to do that. And it's all through the chair. I am speaking to the chair. Anyone that's here behind me, the thousands of people, residents that don't come, are also speaking to the chair. The city manager is speaking to the chair. The chair is speaking to us. We are speaking together, and we have their plans, which is the general plan, the zoning map, and our specific plan. I can't stress that enough, because these are the documents that are going to get us to the future, and we're talking the 30-year build-out or more, and we've got to stick with that. We can't. Thank you. We've got to stick with that. We can't be amending everything. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, next we need a motion, or how do you guys like the agenda? What do you think? You want to approve it, or you want to pull something, or?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's see. Calimesa Chamber of Commerce report, please.
Well, good evening. How's everyone enjoying their Monday, missing out on Monday Night Football being here? I understand Philadelphia.
If you hurry up, you can make it home.
I understand Philadelphia is putting the lick on Atlanta while we wait. Just wanted to share the Chamber's happenings for last month and coming forward. Our September breakfast meeting featured Senator Rosalisi Ochoa-Bo as a guest speaker. It was well attended. It was at the Haas Bistro. Our October breakfast will feature Congressman King Calvert. Can't tell that there's elections coming up, but
Yep.
the date for that breakfast will be October 8th at 7:30 a.m. right here. So tickets are available at the Calimesa Chamber website, and seating will be limited. I guess this building's not big enough. The State of the City coming up. Obviously, the council and the city know about it, but the State of the City luncheon is scheduled for September 26th and will be held at the Plantation on the Lake Recreation Hall. Lunch will be provided by the Haas Bistro, and tickets can be purchased also at our website. And then the Christmas, I want to touch on the Christmas Light Parade. The annual Calimesa Christmas Light Parade, Get Your Lights On Parade, is returning on December 7th at 5 p.m. That's a holiday, right? So, Pearl Harbor Day. Join us for the festive evening of twinkling lights, holiday cheer, and community spirit. You can tell that Donna wrote that, right? So, registration to participate in the parade is completely free. To sign up, visit the website for the link. Currently, we had one new member join the chamber this past month, and we had 5 membership renewals. We are at a total of 138 members. And speaking of members, we now have a membership facilitator. I don't know, facilitator. It's actually Donna. So Donna, you know, she's the administrator at the chamber Monday through Thursday from 9 to 2. And then on Fridays, she'll be spending the days going out and working with current members and facilitating creating new membership. So it's a stipend position at this time. We received funding to cover that for a 3-month period. If it's successful, then we're looking at making it a full-time position. And then, you know, seeing where it goes from there. But at this point, we still only have 1 employee.
Well, you keep your costs down. That's good.
That we have to do, yes. So, are there any questions about the chamber and what's going on?
Well, you said that Ken Calvert was coming for breakfast,
Yeah, it's the breakfast meeting.
and it's going to be here?
Here.
Oh,
Yeah.
so are you going to have
On-
somebody cater it, or?
I'm supposing so. I don't think I'm going to bring my griddle. And,
You're not
I
doing
can make
pancakes?
pancakes and bacon and sausage and eggs, but I do it for the grandkids, you
Yeah.
know. So I could do it for, well, don't really want to do it for 100 people, but I'm sure it's going to be catered.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who's catering it, but yeah. Because we ran into, you know, everybody wants a Haas Bistro, but they're busy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So they're the area caterers, I guess, if you're looking for breakfast.
Just find somebody.
Yeah.
Sean, did you have any questions? No, you didn't. Okay. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you. Guys, have a good evening.
Enjoy the game. Now we're going to open our public hearing. And who is in charge of that? Kelly?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. Hope you're doing well tonight. Agenda item number 11 is a public hearing related to public hearing notification radius regulations in the city and the posting of signs. And just as an FYI, this item is brought to the City Council at the request of Planning Commissioner Brittingham, who requested that this item be brought forward. And tonight we're going to talk about 2 sets of regulations, the first of which is Calimesa Municipal Code regulations related to radius requirements for public hearing notification, and the second is the state regulations regarding FPPC conflict of interest regulations. Okay, so the first, for Calimesa Municipal Code, we have a requirement that anytime there's a public hearing that affects real property, everyone that owns real property within a 300-foot radius needs to be notified. That's only one piece of the regulation that exists. We also post in the newspaper, we post at City Hall, we post at the library, and so on. But there's one particular piece of Calimesa local legislation that says everyone that lives or owns property within 300 feet receives a good old-fashioned hard copy paper notice in the mail. That aligns with state law. That's what the state of California requires, and our municipal code just mirrors that state law. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see that our municipal code does not currently require a notice of public hearing sign be posted on a project site. You may see those in other jurisdictions when you're driving around. They might have a big sign posted that says, you know, notice that somebody's applying for an alcohol permit, or there's some application on file. Calimesa Municipal Code thus far does not require such a regulation, so up until this point we haven't required a sign to be posted. So the next piece of legislation is the state legislation related to conflicts of interest, and the reason why Commissioner Brittingham brought this to the attention of staff and now to the City Council is that he pointed out that our code says a public hearing notice is required to be sent to somebody within 300 feet. However, state law says there may be a conflict of interest up to 500 feet, or in some cases between 500 and 1,000 feet. So he thought that was interesting to say, well, wait a minute, so somebody can be conflicted from voting on a project if they live within 500 feet, but they wouldn't have even been notified. And so it was kind of an interesting point that he pointed out. And he said, why don't we take a look at how other cities in the area handle this? And so I took a look at some local jurisdictions. I spoke with their planning directors. So the city of Banning currently also mirrors state law. They just require notification within 300 feet. However, their city council has also directed staff to prepare an ordinance to amend those procedures. And among those amendments include increasing their notification radius to 600 feet. So that would double that notification radius and therefore capture more members of their city to be notified. And Banning is also looking at posting a notice of public hearing sign on the project site. So to my knowledge, they haven't yet passed such an ordinance, but they have directed staff to prepare an ordinance with those regulation modifications. City of Beaumont and City of Redlands both mirror state law. They just require 300 feet, which is standard. And City of Yucaipa does something interesting. They kind of have a sliding scale. So their notification radius depends on the size of the project. It makes a little bit of sense. So projects of 20 acres or less notify just the 300 feet. Projects between 21 and 160 acres require notification within 700 feet. And then projects that are larger than 160 acres have a very large notification radius of 1,300 feet. So that's what our neighbors do. This item went to the Planning Commission on June 10th of this year. We discussed the regulations that our neighbors do, state law and so forth, and concluding that public hearing, the Planning Commission made a few recommendations to City Council, and they are that one, City Council should make this modification to increase the radius to 600 feet. Again, that would double that notification radius. And two, to post a notice of public hearing sign on the project site. We didn't discuss size during the hearing, but upon further reflection, I thought it should really come with a staff recommendation for size. A lot of jurisdictions like them to be large. You don't want to post a little sign on the property and then it doesn't really do any good. Nobody saw it. And so I'm recommending a kind of a large sign, 6 by 6, and I have some examples here, actually, before I get to that. So here's just a graphic representation of what a 300-foot radius would look like for a recent project. If the council's familiar with what we call the Reedman subdivision over off of Desert Lawn Drive, it's kind of that large parcel there in the center of the screen. So a 300-foot radius, which is our current Muni Code requirement, would capture 78 properties. And the Planning Commission had questions regarding mailing costs because, you know, with each hard copy notice that goes out, there's a post office cost associated with that. And so for 78 properties, it would be about $50. And in the case of a private development application, that mailing cost would be borne by the applicant. So for example, again, 78 for 300 feet. We went up to 600 feet for the same property. We'd be looking at 107 properties in this instance. Mailing costs would go up about $18 to $68, and again, that would be borne by the applicant. So that's just meant to be illustrative for council to see what kind of changes we'd be looking at if the recommendations are made this evening. Okay, and here are some examples of different jurisdictions and the signs that they post. To the left, this is City of Diamond Bar, and that is a 6 by 6. It's showing 4 feet of sign height with 2 feet posts and then 6 feet long. A couple of other examples here showing a conditional use permit and other public hearing. And the point is, maybe not everybody looks at the newspaper. They may not receive the hard copy in the mail, but if you drive by the site and it's of note to you, this type of sign would bring to your attention that there's an application on file and that a public hearing is going to occur imminently. For environmental, staff took a look at the potential environmental impacts of making this change, and we did find that it would qualify for a common sense exemption under CEQA. So there would be no environmental impacts associated with just this code language change, should it be made. And with that, the recommendation is here before you. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
John?
I don't have any specific questions. I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Jeff?
Thank you, Kelly. I like this ordinance, addition to the ordinance or the modification. A few questions for you. So, do you have any knowledge of the history behind the 600 feet recommendation? Was it just to double the existing 300, or what was the discussion or logic behind setting it at 600?
Well, I will say for our planning commission, I think we were leaning on the changes that City of Banning was looking at making. In terms of how Banning came up with that, I don't know. But I think when we looked at Banning's proposed revisions, we kind of liked that. So 600 feet, as you stated, would double that radius, but it wouldn't go quite so far as, say, City of Yucaipa, which goes out way out to 1,300 feet, depending on the size.
Right.
So I think it was seen as a good compromise to increase notification without overdoing it.
Okay. Yeah, I like that idea of increasing it. I just was wondering what the logic was behind it. The Yucaipa seems, I gave some thought to Yucaipas, but it seemed a little cumbersome. Like, what somebody deems a significant project over someone else may not be just a matter of acreage, right? So
Sure.
better to just set a threshold of notification. So 600 sounds right. I like the idea of a 6x6 sign. I think that's a good idea. It's sufficient. It's a good size. And the particular one I liked the best was the one on page 118 of the agenda packet. But it was, let's see, that final one on the right hand side. You're right. I think that one is clear. It contains all the relevant information for the public, specifically the hearing information and project information. I think that's really vital. And I like the idea that it includes a project site map. I think they don't all have that, but I think it should have that.
Great.
Couple questions. So the fiscal impact, I think you mentioned that. The mailings are gonna be borne by the applicant, and then the sign would be
Also by the applicant. It would be a
Also by the-
project requirement. I will say there are instances in which the city initiates public hearings related to land development. So for example, there may be some sort of capital improvement project in the future where the city would be sending out public hearing notices. And in that instance, I would imagine that the city would bear the costs of those notifications. Typically, though, it is a private developer,
Okay. Yeah.
by and large.
And so the city, do we have the logistics in place? We expanded to 600 feet. It's just a matter of notifying more residents, right? And we're prepared to do that.
So we have been actually discussing this internally. We can do it a couple of different ways. We can tell the applicant, hey, you need to hire a third party. There's companies that do this. They're radius map companies. So sometimes we'll have the developer send us the list. We double check that everybody who's supposed to be included is included. They produce the mailing labels, and then we'll send them city stamped envelopes so that folks know this is coming from the city of Calimesa, and then we have their staff do the grunt work. The other way is that we burden our administrative team, which in the very recent past, we've had some really large public hearing notices that have gone out, and that, truth be told, is challenging. We have a very small administrative staff. So I'd look to Will for direction, but I think we would prefer that first option. If we make this change, we would tell the applicants, hey, let us make sure that the list is accurate, and then please send us proof of mailing, and you do folding and sticking, because it's
Yeah, that's a
onerous.
good
That seems
idea.
preferable.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
You actually answered my questions I was gonna ask, so
Great.
Good.
you did very good.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion do we need a motion for this, or?
But also, is there any public testimony? This is a public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm sorry. I don't have anybody wanting to speak, so, no. Okay, we'll go ahead with,
Go ahead and close the public hearing. Is that better?
okay.
the
close
sign.
the public hearing first before we do the motion?
Just close the public hearing, yes, and then there should be a motion.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing, and I need to get a motion, please.
I'll move that the city council waive full reading, is that the right one? And introduce ordinance number 401 by title only, an ordinance of the city of Calimesa approving zone text amendment 24-01, increasing the distance of the required public hearing notification radius to 600 feet, and requiring that a notice of public hearing sign be posted on the property. And staff recommends a 6x6 sign.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes the public hearing. Our next, thank you, Kelly. Our next item is a business item. And who will be doing that?
That will be me.
Okay.
So thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. This item is to consider an amendment with our agreement with Family Services Association for Senior Services. Last November, staff reported on the status of the Grab and Go Senior Meal Program here at the Senior Center. As a refresher, the rules that allowed the program under COVID protocols had been discontinued starting July 1st, 2023. Therefore, Family Services Association, or FSA, the service provider for the Senior Center, informed staff that they would be returning to in-person meals starting January 1st, 2024. The direction from City Council at that time was to work with FSA to identify ways to allow the Grab and Go meal program to continue, including inquiring about if additional funding was needed. This has been a very, very popular program for our Senior Center, and so a lot of our senior community has come to rely on it. Fortunately, after that point, the program was allowed to continue without further discussion. So since they were continuing it, we were just going to kind of leave it alone. Now, since FSA had stated that the Grab and Go program had only been temporarily allowed under COVID, I sent an email to our federal and state elected representatives to try and get an update to the program to include a Grab and Go option, because this is a program is regulated by legislation. Assemblymember Greg Wallace took up our cause, and I worked with his office to craft Assembly Bill 2410. Although AB 2410 passed the Assembly by unanimous vote, the State Senate held the bill of appropriations suspense file, effectively killing the legislation before it got to a vote of the full Senate. Although we had a setback, staff has continued to work with Assemblymember Wallace's office on a solution. The silver lining in this is that it brought this issue to the attention of the State Office on Aging, and they're going to be looking at updating and modernizing the senior meal program as a whole, and looking at the related legislation in the future. So, and we'll be hopefully working with them to craft that so that our interests are protected. More recently, FSA approached staff to again let us know that they would be returning to in-person meals. This time, however, it was due to funding shortfalls. The state has cut funding significantly, and as a result, FSA cannot support the Grab and Go program at its current levels. Staff then asked FSA to give us a price estimate for the difference in what they had budgeted for the in-person meals and what the current Grab and Go meal program would cost. So FSA budgeted for 30 meals per day, 5 days per week, which is 150 meals per week. And right now there are 379 people registered for the Grab and Go meal program. 194 of those are in Calimesa, 138 are in Yucaipa, 17 are from Cherry Valley, and 14 are from Banning, and then the remaining 16 are from other cities coming from as far as Fontana and Moreno Valley. Wow. Despite having 379 signed up, however, from January to August of this year, we've been averaging about 130 people served per week, although that number has been trending up slightly recently. So 130 people at 5 meals per person is 650 meals per week. Staff is recommending an amendment to our senior services agreement with FSA to cover the cost differential between the Grab and Go meal program and the budgeted in-person meals for the next 3 months. And the reason this is needed is because right now the funding that is provided for this program comes directly from the county to FSA. So the city is not a party to that. So we're just basically needing to amend our agreement with them to allow us to provide additional funding to support the program. So we're using a number of 160 people served per week to calculate the not to exceed amount that we're recommending to ensure that we won't fall short. So for 3 months, that comes to $40,000, and we'll only be actually billed for meals delivered. So less the meals they had budgeted for. So if there's only 140 that week, they'll only bill us for 140 minus the 30. And we'll use this time, so this will get us through December, and we're going to use this time to explore additional options with FSA. Typically, they get one-time funds from the state, from any unused funds from the previous year get reappropriated. So those funds could be used to offset the cost of the program for the rest of the fiscal year. So we're hoping that will show up between now and then, but we'll keep an eye on it. FSA does expect similar budgetary challenges next year, so we will need to continue to work with them on this issue beyond this fiscal year as well. And of course, we'll again continue to work with the Assembly Member's Office to try to get some solutions to this issue. That concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I would kind of like to continue this item since there's only 3 of us here. I don't know if there's going to be some more discussion on the issue.
So the only thing I would say on that is we have to have a decision by September 30th. Otherwise, if we don't have an agreement in place, they were going to revert back to in-person meals starting October or September 30th. So we won't have another council meeting between now and then. So if we do continue it, it does put the program at some risk. So that would be my only concern with that.
I guess I'd still say it's probably better if we continue it, but if the other 2 of you don't want to, then we can discuss it some more.
Is the main action on the floor just whether or not we want to extend the program through December, and then we're going to revisit it after that, right?
Yeah, well, the action, though, doesn't carry with an appropriation with it, so we would need to appropriate $40,000 to cover the costs for the differential.
That's the cost until the end of the year?
That would be the cost, that would be our estimated cost between now to get us through December 31st to continue the program, yes. I will
stopgap for until, break it up so we could accommodate John's request.
I think that we can talk to FSA and see if they'll allow us to continue the program. I mean, at that point, it's only another week, really, because September 30th is when they wanted to go live with in-person meals. Our next regular council meeting is October 7th, so we could continue it to that date. And then I could just talk to FSA and say, hey, can you cover us for another week or so? And possibly what we may do is we can say, let's still retroactively, make the effective date September 30th so we can still cover those costs if the council chooses to go in that direction. So we can have that conversation with them. I'd hope that they'd be open to that, but I won't know until I talk to them tomorrow. I think that they realize and they understand that how important this program is to us. So, and we've overall had a good relationship with them. So, maybe I'm a little risk adverse, I guess. So maybe the risk isn't as big as it is in my mind. I do understand the council's desire to have this as a discussion for the full council. So I do understand that part, and I'd hope that that FSA will understand that. So we can have that we'll talk to them tomorrow, and we can see if they'll be accommodating to that. I think we should be fine, but
I mean, if needs be, we can maybe have it as a quick item on our special.
If we're having it as a special meeting, Quinn, could we add that as part to the agenda next week?
Yes, we could add it, and I was just dialoguing with the city clerk. So next week will actually be an adjourned regular meeting.
Okay.
So you could have 2 items on the agenda.
Okay. So we can then continue it to next week, and we can do it that way.
Okay, yeah, I do have some questions about it, and I think there'd be some discussion on it, so I don't want to leave other people out and only
Okay.
go with 3 of us on it. So we can to be.
Understood,
probably
and,
better.
with that clarification, then we're fine, because we'd be able to have the item, we would have the discussion and decision before that, so then they could act accordingly. So, okay,
Okay, we'll go ahead and push that
Thank you.
to September 23rd then.
Morning, 3rd, yeah.
Right? I was right? Okay. Our next item, our business item, is adoption of amended financial reserve policy effective July 1st.
and I will be taking this one as well.
Okay, I was thinking maybe Celeste, but.
Celeste will be available for questions if there's any questions. I do have a PowerPoint for this one, for this item. Can I have the clicker? Thank you very much. Oops. All right, so this item is to talk about some amendments to or recommended amendments to our financial reserve policy. During the most recent budget process, I'd stated that staff was in the process of updating the reserve policy. And having reserve policies in place communicate how reserves are to be used and make sure that we have sufficient funds in case of a rainy day. Although the city can apply for FEMA funds, for example, in the event of emergency, it can take months or, in most cases, as our finance director knows, years to recover funds through FEMA. I remember going, in my previous city, our purchasing manager went through a FEMA training. I think this was in about 2016, 2017, and he had said that they were still working out claims from the 1994 Northridge earthquake. So that can give you an idea of how much a large disaster could take. So it is important that we're prepared to be self-sufficient when it comes to when the unexpected arises. We also will be recommending additional reserve categories to help the city maintain capital improvement programs and IT infrastructure in case of a downturn or some other funding shortfall. So the current policy was adopted in 2019. And the work of this and past councils, as well as the forethought of my predecessors, put us in a financial position to build the reserves that we have. So we're very fortunate to be in the financial position we have to be able to fund these reserves. Staff is proposing to, first of all, with the general fund contingency reserve, to retain that at 30%, and until it reaches $5 million. So right now, our annual budget is just over $10 million, so that comes out to about $3 million. So we're maintaining the same levels, and as we grow, that number will obviously go up with, expenditures. Until we get to about $16.6 million, that's when we'd reach the $5 million minimum that we're talking about, and then at that point, we can be a little more flexible with the percentages. So this is, as the city grows, the need for that percentage goes down, but you still want to have a good base number, which is where we came up with the $5 million. So because of that, this is more of a long-term plan, because we don't expect to reach $16.6 million, at least in the next few years. And how long it takes us to get there is highly dependent on our growth cycle. So as that will be the primary driver for increasing services, since we would need the revenues of that growth to fund those services. That makes sense. For our equipment and vehicle replacement reserve, this is also being retained at the current level of 5% until we reach a minimum threshold of $500,000. Now, right now, our reserve already is at that level, so we'd recommend actually bringing it down. It's actually at $501,000, so we'd recommend bringing it down to $500,000 until the next budget cycle. And again, this is effective for July 1st, 2025. So this is going to help us build the next budget. So as far as the new categories of reserves, we're adding three new categories. The first one relates to compensated absences. So every year, the city is required to calculate the amount of accumulated compensated absences we have. And so compensated absences is the current dollar value of accumulated time off that is required to be paid out when an employee leaves the city. And that amount is different depending on if they're retiring from the city or they're leaving for other reasons. Having a reserve set aside for these amounts would allow the city to have the funding to tap into in case someone does leave and a large payout is required, since we can't predict who will leave at any given year. So we don't want to budget for a bunch of costs that may or may not be used. So having the reserve set aside will allow us to fund those costs when they occur. But because we don't expect everybody to leave all at once, we don't need to fund that at 100%. So that's why we're recommending a 50% level. But there is ability for some flexibility there. And if we know there's for example, when Bonnie Johnson retired with her contract, she had been here for a long time serving as city manager. That was a larger payout. So the city actually knew she was retiring. We knew the timing of it. So we set aside additional funds. So in circumstances like that, where we anticipate a retirement of that type of employee, then we could up that percentage for that given year. We're also recommending reserves related to capital projects and information technology, and these are based on those that are specifically spent out of the city's capital project fund and the IT replacement fund. So this isn't our entire capital project program. It's just those that are basically the primary funding comes from the general fund, because other projects are funded through reserves or through restricted funds, excuse me. So these amounts may fluctuate a bit because they're based on the 5-year CIP, and that can change from year to year. But the purpose is to have funding set aside to allow capital projects and IT infrastructure improvements to continue even in a downturn, because those are important that we continue those for the community. Once those reserves have been set and met, any additional funds may be considered for various reserves. So as an example, the City Council created the Parks and Trails Reserve for $75,000 with the fiscal year 23-24 budget. Another reserve we may be consider proposing in the future is related to pension funding, to make sure that we minimize interest costs associated with that. Just so for strategizing on those things. So we're looking at possibly coming up with a pension funding strategy or pension funding plan. And so with that, there may be a need for a reserve for that when we bring that along. So here's the effect of the proposed policy versus our current policy. So to give you some perspective, the fiscal year 24-25 projected beginning fund balance, so basically the projected ending fund balance for fiscal 24, is about $7.8 million. Although we do actually expect that to be higher. That was the amount that was our projection at the end of when we adopted the budget. But revenues are coming in a little bit stronger. Expenditures are coming in a little bit less. So we do expect that number to be slightly higher. So what that means is we have more than enough reserves to fund the additional reserves we're proposing, and still be left with an unreserved balance of about $3.3 million. So staff is recommending approval of these new reserve policies as presented. And as I stated earlier, if approved, these changes would be effective for the fiscal year 25-26 budget. So having them approved will help us shape next year's budget with this policy in mind. So we want to make sure that our budget is built in a way that we can support our reserve policies before anything else. And that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You want me to start with Jeff, or would you like to start?
I don't have any questions, but I do like it. We take up the reserve a little bit, and it helps me just visually understand as far as what are we holding these reserves for. So just earmarking everything helps, and I think helps for the public too, if they're visually looking at this and understanding why we're holding this money. It helps explain it all a little bit. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Jeff?
I don't have any further questions. I called Will earlier and I was confused about a lot of some of these issues and numbers, so he set me straight. I think it is sound fiscal management to add these new categories to prepare the city for the future, and our 30% reserve has served us well to this point, so no need modifying that at this point. And I like the idea of expanding it or having these new categories as part of it. So that's all I have to say.
I have to say that staff does a very good job about making everything very clear. Celeste is very good about, you know, putting everything together and giving us the numbers, and Will's very good about explaining everything. And I don't really have any issues when I read the agenda, the whole packet. It's very clear. So I want to thank everybody for doing that. I know Darlene and everybody does it very well. So thank you. And with that, we will need a motion.
I can grab it. I'll move to adopt of the City Council of the City of Calimesa, California, adopting an amended financial reserve policy effective July 1st, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mayor and council member reporting of county and regional meetings, conferences. John, did you have any?
I don't think our presenters left, but I appreciate their presentations and their information on some pretty important topics. I didn't attend any meetings, and that will conclude my report.
Jeff?
Yeah, thank you. So I attended the RCA on September 9th and have a few announcements. So we got an update on the acquisition status report. So 11 parcels have been acquired, with which 9 of these acquisitions were acquisitions and 3 were donations. So these 9 acquisitions added approximately 18 acres. Donations added approximately 53 acres to the RCA. RCA took a legislative stance of neutral on Proposition 4. It was the Parks, Environmental and Energy and Water Bond measure. Although this could potentially provide $870 million, to which some of this could be accessed by the RCA, it's unlikely that we would see any of that money, so that's why there's the neutral stance on it. Not that we're necessarily against it, but it's not going to probably help us either. We did get a fire update with regards to the impact of RCA lands. Year to date, 1,792 acres of RCA-owned lands and 5,077 acres of other MSHCP conserved lands were affected by the fires throughout the region. So this includes the Round Fire, the Eagle Fire, Nixon Fire, Alamos, and Record Fire. Quite a bit. And so, let's see, RCA is actually in the process of hiring a consultant to prepare a wildfire management plan for our RCA-owned lands. So this is going to be, I think, helpful in helping RCA determine how best they can interact with our fire agencies and coordinate interaction with fire officials, especially during active fires. And then post-fires, how best to restore lands as well. So, and then finally, for those interested, you can save the date. RCA will host an MSHCP 20th anniversary celebration on October 11th at Hidden Valley Nature Center at 9:30 a.m. You all look so excited. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jeff. I attended a WRCOG meeting on September 9th, and we had some issues with a few things. I'll go over that, but they did an overview of the TUMP Nexus study final draft, and the executive committee approved the final draft of the Nexus study. And the fee schedule will take effect on April 1, 2025. They spoke about the General Assembly for 2025, and they've decided to go with an Admiral William H. McBraven for the keynote speaker. And then they went on to talk about increasing a maximum bond authorization for this Greenworks Nuveen Green Capital CPACE program, and everybody was not very happy about this. It did not pass. So, and then after that, we had some technical issues and we had to close down the meeting. So we didn't get to go over everything we needed to, but our next meeting will be October 10th at 2 o'clock. And then with that, we will go to our city manager, Will Colball, for his report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I just have one announcement. I just want to announce a slight, well, not a slight, a staffing change. So we contract with Charles Abbott for some public works services, and Margaret Monson has been our public works director, or interim public works director, and she served us very, very well. But now that Madi Shakir is back from her leave, she will be taking over that role as the interim public works director for the city of Calimesa. Margaret will still be helping us out with projects and things like that, and she'll still be an integral part of our team. But since Madi's here every day, and she helps us out with so many different things, not just on the public works side. She works really well with our administrative staff, working on community events, things like that. So, you know, we're really happy to have her in this role, and I know she's going to do a tremendous job. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
We're glad you're back, Mari. And we will be, I guess that concludes our meeting. We will be having a closed session.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. Pursuant to Government Code Section 549-56.8, the City Council will now go into closed session to have a conference with its real property negotiators with respect to the property identified on the agenda. The second closed session will be continued to a later date.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.